Have you ever wondered why your prayers feel like they're hitting a ceiling? Why opportunities slip through your fingers just when you thought breakthrough was coming? You wake up each morning with hope, but by evening, that familiar weight settles back on your chest. The weight of wondering if you're doing something wrong, if there's some invisible barrier between you and the abundant life you've been promised. Here's what might surprise you. Sometimes the very habits we think are keeping us grounded are actually keeping us stuck. Those daily routines that feel so normal, so necessary, might be creating walls where God intended to build bridges. You thought consistency meant blessing. But maybe some consistencies are quietly blocking the flow of grace you've been desperately seeking. You lie awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, and the questions won't stop coming. Why does everyone else seem to have clarity while you're still searching? Why do others receive answers while your prayers seem to echo an empty space? The doubt creeps in like fog, thick and suffocating, whispering that maybe you're not faithful enough, not worthy enough, not patient enough. But what if those sleepless nights aren't signs of spiritual failure? What if they're actually invitations to examine the invisible patterns that shape your days? The habits so woven into your routine that you don't even notice them anymore. The ways of thinking, speaking, and being that feel as natural as breathing, yet might be creating barriers you never intended to build. Would you still trust divine timing if it meant discovering that your own daily choices have been delaying your breakthrough? That question sits heavy, doesn't it? Because it means taking responsibility for patterns you didn't even know existed. It means admitting that sometimes the enemy isn't out there somewhere, but in the mirror, reflecting back habits that have become second nature. You start your day the same way you have for months, maybe years. The alarm sounds, and before your feet hit the floor, your mind is already racing toward worry. What if this project fails? What if that relationship doesn't heal? What if the money doesn't stretch? Those first thoughts of the day, like seeds planted in fresh soil, begin growing immediately. And by the time you're fully awake, anxiety has already taken root. Maybe that's why breakthrough feels so elusive. Not because heaven is closed, but because the garden of your mind is overgrown with weeds of worry that choke out faith before it can take hold. The morning routine that feels so responsible, so adult, might actually be training your heart to expect problems instead of miracles. Sometimes the habits that block blessings aren't dramatic sins or obvious rebellions. They're subtle patterns that slowly shift your spiritual atmosphere. The way you speak about your circumstances when no one else is listening. The thoughts you entertain during quiet moments. The emotions you feed through the content you consume. The conversations you engage in. The mental replays of past disappointments. It could be that your blessing isn't delayed because God is testing your patience. Maybe it's delayed because your daily habits are creating spiritual static that makes it hard to receive clear signals from heaven, like trying to tune into a radio station while standing next to power lines. The signal is there, strong and clear, but the interference makes it impossible to hear. Consider the words that flow from your lips throughout the day, not the prayers you offer during designated spiritual moments, but the casual comments, the automatic responses, the way you describe your life when someone asks how you're doing. Those words carry power, creating either bridges or barriers between your current reality and your promised future. Your heart knows the truth even when your mind resists it. That sinking feeling when you catch yourself complaining again, gossiping again, rehearsing old hurts again. Those moments of recognition aren't condemnation. They're invitations, gentle nudges from a loving Creator who sees the blessing trying to reach you through the fog of habits that no longer serve your destiny. The psychological truth is profound, yet simple. Our brains are pattern-seeking machines, constantly creating neural pathways that make certain thoughts and behaviors automatic. What begins as a conscious choice eventually becomes an unconscious habit. And those unconscious habits shape not only how we see the world, but how we position ourselves to receive what the world has to offer. When you habitually focus on lack, your brain becomes expertly trained to notice everything that's missing. When you repeatedly rehearse past failures, your neural networks become highways for disappointment. When you consistently speak limitations over your life, You're literally rewiring your consciousness to expect and accept less than what's possible. But here's the beautiful mystery of how we're designed. The same neuroplasticity that can trap us in negative patterns can also liberate us into new realities. Every morning offers a fresh opportunity to plant different seeds in the garden of your mind. Every conversation becomes a chance to speak life instead of death. Every thought becomes a choice between faith and fear. Maybe that's why this message found you today. Not because you're failing, but because you're ready. Ready to examine the invisible habits that have been operating in the background of your life. Ready to discover that breakthrough might be closer than you think. Waiting just on the other side of patterns you're finally prepared to change. The sunrise doesn't force its way through darkness. It simply shows up, consistent and patient, until the shadows naturally retreat. Your breakthrough might work the same way. Not dramatic or sudden, but gentle and inevitable, as you slowly replace blessing-blocking habits with blessing-attracting ones. If this message is reaching you at exactly the right moment, if these words are stirring something deep in your spirit, take it as a quiet sign. Your waiting isn't wasted. Your struggles aren't meaningless. You're being prepared for something sacred, and sometimes preparation requires examining the very foundations upon which you've built your daily life. The morning light filters through your window, and something feels different today. Not because your circumstances have changed, but because you're finally ready to see what's been there all along. Those daily patterns that feel so innocent, so automatic, might be the very thing standing between you and the breakthrough you've been praying for. You reach for your phone before your feet touch the floor. It's become muscle memory, this immediate dive into everyone else's highlight reel while your own story still feels unwritten. The comparison begins before you're even fully conscious. Their promotion, their relationship, their answered prayer, their perfect family photo. And suddenly, before you've even started your day, gratitude has been replaced by inadequacy. This isn't just a bad habit. It's a blessing blocker disguised as connection. Because when your first conscious moments are spent measuring your inside against everyone else's outside, you're training your heart to see lack instead of abundance. You're programming your spirit to notice what's missing rather than what's present. The words you speak over your life carry more weight than you realize. Not just in prayer, but in casual conversation, in the privacy of your own thoughts, in the way you describe your circumstances to others. You say things like, "Nothing ever works out for me," or "I'm just not that lucky," or "Good things don't happen to people like me." You think you're being realistic, but you're actually being prophetic in the worst possible way. Your tongue holds the power of life and death, and you've been unknowingly speaking death over dreams that were trying to take root. Those casual complaints, those automatic responses of defeat, those habitual declarations of limitation are creating spiritual atmospheres that repel the very blessings you're desperately seeking. Maybe that's why breakthrough feels so elusive. Not because heaven is withholding, but because your own words are building walls where bridges should be. The blessing is trying to reach you, but it can't penetrate the barrier of negative confession that's become your default language. The silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. Your waiting isn't wasted time, it's sacred time. Those habits that have been quietly blocking your blessings aren't permanent walls. They're temporary barriers that you now have the power to remove. One small change, one conscious choice, one different response at a time. Your breakthrough is closer than you think, waiting just beyond the patterns you're finally ready to release.